Welcome, everybody, to the Peruvian Waltz podcast. This is going to be the first episode. Well, technically the second. Me and Christopher recorded a pilot earlier, but it never went up, sadly. I'm joining you from Lima, Peru, and now you get to see what my annotation looks like, if that's even a word. And I'm joined by Christopher Ricardo in Utah and Peter Galindo in Toronto, as with the other two panelists. Peter, I'm sure who's listened to my other podcast you're familiar with. Christopher Ricardo I'm doing this my first or second podcast with him. So we'll introduce you first. How are you, Christopher? You're in Utah, right?
That's right. I'm in Utah. I'm a Peruvian expat. I've lived here for most of my life, but somehow I've always been a big fan of Peruvian soccer. I'm originally from Juarez in Peru, and so I'm a big follower of Sport Ancash and Sport Rosario.
All right, and Peter, don't forget to introduce yourself, as always.
Yes, I am myself in the flesh this time. I guess for most people watching, I need no introduction, but yes, I am in Toronto. I'm the son of a Peruvian immigrant who moved about 25 years ago to Canada and made a home here, but I still very much have ties to Peru, and I love Peruvian football, obviously. Otherwise, I would not be on the show right now.
Of course. So what me and Peter decided to do is we obviously had our We obviously had our podcast, the Brian Peter Show, but we decided to split it in two because we wanted to do a daily thing. We decided to do a weekly thing where we talk about Peruvian football. And since I met Christopher, I thought that we could have three panelists. So the idea just became more appealing to me, and I decided to just start to do it weekly. So this is the Peruvian Waltz podcast, and we're going to do it every week on Tuesday, most likely at 10. But we might do 9 sometimes as well. We'll let you know. We gotta let you guys know a few days before. So yeah, and as for the Brian Peter show, the other half is gonna be Remember the Name, which is the other part. Was really listened a lot, and me and Peter really enjoyed doing this. So that's gonna live on as well. So yeah, I guess we can first talk about the Torneo de Verano, which we're not gonna talk about the fixtures, the fixture list, the Apertura and the Clausura. That can wait. So we're going to talk about the groups. So Universitario, Alianza, Cristal in one group. And from what it looks like, it's going to be the same format as last year, which is great because the Peruvian League stick to one format and not several like they change every year. What do you guys think? Peter, I'll get to you first.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it has to stick to one format. That's been one problem with the domestic league. Whatever the formatting happens to be, they always change it every year or every couple of years, and it just became very hard to follow. I mean, I can remember back 10 years ago. And since then, it's probably gone through about 3 or 4 changes. So, I mean, it's imperative that they keep it this way, especially because I know that the FFP and the ADFP, they want to sort of make it under one umbrella. They want to bring some consistency to the league. They want to improve it. This is one way to do it. So it's nice to see the Torneo de Verano sticking around, and especially under the same format. In terms of the groups, I mean, they are what it is. I mean, we were always destined to get Universitario, Alianza, Sporting Cristal, pretty much all the big teams in one group. We'll probably get into this more as you ask us questions, Brian, but I mean, lots to dissect with a lot of these teams, especially Universitario, who lost a lot of key players, but certainly very intriguing early on. And there are a few teams that I think could really surprise, which I'm sure we'll get into later.
Of course. And Christopher, I want to get your thoughts before we ask a few more questions about it.
Well, I agree with Peter in that the Peruvian League needs to keep one format. I don't know if this is the format that I would like to see. I kind of like the liguillas that we had about 5 years ago. I would love to see a domestic cup, right, where we could include second division teams into this mix. And honestly, I feel like the Torneo del Inca, right, was kind of heading towards that, right, that direction. But for some reason, they do the name change, and now it's a whole new cup. And for statistical purposes, for someone that likes statistics like me, it feels weird because you don't know where to place it. But, I mean, overall, just going through the groups really fast. My favorite, Sport Rosario, it's in Group A. That's going to be really good for the team, for the small teams to have all those big Lima teams coming to their cities and playing all these matches. I mean, that's going to be good for the club's economy, I think, which is kind of sucky for Group because they're not going to have as much as that. But it is going to be interesting to see the strong provincial, quote unquote, provincial teams from like Real Garcilaso, Sport Boys, if you want to say it, that is barely coming back to the first division, and Sport Huancayo kind of fight it out in that Group B. So I think we're going to see interesting things on both sides.
Of course, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. I guess I'm going to ask you guys, who are your favorites for both groups? Because that's question that's going to go up. So I'll read the groups. I'll read the groups again, just for the people who are listening. Group A is Universitario, Alianza Lima, Sporting Cristal, Universidad San Martín, Comerciantes Unidos, UTC, Ayacucho FC, and Sport Rosario. While Group B is Deportivo Municipal, Sport Boys, Deportivo Binacional, Sport Huancayo, FBC Melgar, Real Garcilaso, Cantalao, No Comercio. So I'm gonna have to say my favorite for Group A. I'm gonna say Sporting Cristal because I think that Mario Salas is gonna do wonders in the first half of the season. I don't know if they'll win the whole thing, but I think that's or no, but I don't know they'll get to the final at least. Group B, I want to say Sport Boys, but I think it's gonna be Sport Huancayo because I really rate Guidoni as a manager, and I think that they're one of the favorites this year to do. I think they'll surprise a few people. What do you guys think, Peter? Who are your favorites for the group?
Both good shouts. I mean, obviously Christopher mentioned it earlier. Sport Rosario, I think, is in with a shout. They really surprised last year.
Sure.
Really, really gave a great account of themselves. Just a very complete team to watch. Maybe not the most, aesthetically pleasing side, but I mean, who are we to judge? They had to stay up. They stayed up and did so very comfortably, and were pushing for one of the places in the continental competitions, and you got to commend them for that. I'll slightly agree with you and say Sporting Cristal just because Salas really intrigues me. I think that was an appointment that was needed. That's a team, Brian and Christopher as well. That's a team that underwhelmed years. I mean, Brian and I mentioned this many times, probably one of the most underwhelming champions in recent memory in Peru. And there's no doubt about that. And they embarrass themselves in the Copa Libertadores, as they often do. Salas, to me, has a lot of talent to work with there, and he has a great academy that he can bring through players from. The squad, it's decent enough, in all honesty, and because the other clubs, the other big clubs especially, lost so many key players, I think they have a chance here. And as for Group B, I mean, Brian, I know you want to say Sport Boys. I will say Sport Boys because I like their squad a lot. I mean, they brought in Luis Tejada, who I think is going to give them a nice attacking threat. And the overall makeup of the squad, yeah, it's a bit older, but there are some players on there who do really intrigue me, and they managed to keep hold of some of them, which I think is massive. I mean, a lot of players to pick out from, but I do like the makeup of their squad. They're going to be riding the momentum. I will back them to do well in the Torneo de Verano in their group.
Yeah, I think they'll do well. I think they'll finish in the top three. Like I said, I think Sport Huancayo will get to the final because I think that they built well. And how about you, Christopher? Who are your favorites?
Well, to be honest with you, for Group A, I'm going to have to go with Alianza Lima, just because Bengochea is such a good coach. Like, honestly, from what he did last year with the team, I think that this year's he's going to be even better. And like, yeah, I know I am a little biased towards Sport Rosario, but I can see him hopefully second place or third place finish in that group. I think they're a dark horse in this group for sure. For Group B, I want to say Real Garcilaso just because altitude is always a thing, and I don't know if the other teams are going to be as accustomed, especially like Municipal and Sport Boys, and those away games in Cusco are going to be important to decide who is going to be on top at the end of the short tournament. So those are my two picks.
Yeah, Real Garcilaso were forced to be reckoned with at home last season. They were very good in taking advantage of the altitude. And so were Sport Huancayo. So I think that those two are going to be the teams to beat. Now, as for Sport Rosario, I actually agree with you very much. I think they're going to be a dark horse. Made some good signings. The probably incoming Christopher Gonzalez. There's Robinson Aponza, who was really good in this league a few years back. I think he was. No, I don't think he was the top goal scorer 2 years ago.
He was.
With against Atletico, which is not a small feat. And then there's players like there's who else? Liebman staying. There's another one. And yeah, overall good players. I think they've improved from last season. It looked like they were going to get worse, but they've actually gotten better, and their coach intrigues me as well. So people weren't happy with him, but I think that Pablo Abraham is an interesting choice because he was Sampaoli's assistant in 2011. Sure, his CV isn't great after that, but I think it's a good choice. So, what do you guys think, Peter? What do you guys think about all that?
Yeah, I mean, all good points. I do like the fact, though, yes, I mean, you do mention the fact that Group A is obviously a little more top-heavy when you look at, obviously, the bigger clubs. But I do like I mean, they are well-balanced. I mean, you still have Melgar in Group B. You got Sport Boys coming back up. They're going to be riding the momentum, as I mentioned. Garcilaso's a good side. Huancayo as well. One player I do want to mention, just briefly, because I was talking about, how Sport Boys had a few young players to watch who might actually maybe eventually push themselves on the national team radar. Someone who I watched in the odd game for Sport Boys last year, who I thought really impressed, was Alejandro Ramos, the fullback for Sport Boys. 19 years old.
It's quite good.
He is very good. And, I mean, he's still got room to grow. The fact he's going to be playing in La Primera, I think, is really going to help him with his development. So to those who are maybe looking for some players to watch in 2018, that is certainly one of them.
Yeah, Sport Boys don't have the best academy in the world. They have a decent academy, not great. Nothing to compete with the big boys, but the most recent player, Elia Ramos might be the next one, because the most recent player that's come out was Alexander Cayens, who played for us for a while. I saw Pato Arce, who plays for Melgar. And Melgar are looking very strong this year as well, so I can't rule them out. It just takes Sport 1K will do a little better than them. So, yeah. So, Christopher, what other thoughts do you have before we can move on to the Segunda División format, which is going to be an interesting topic?
Okay, I have kind of a random question, but considering this is our first podcast of the year, how about we try to make a really short prediction on what are the two teams you guys think are going to be relegated? Just guessing,
That's a tough one. I haven't really thought about that. This year it's kind of hard. Last year was a bit easy. I thought Juan Ares was obviously going to go down, but this year it's a little tougher. I'd say maybe Catolao, because I don't think they've really reinforced very well. I think that they've lost their best player. They've lost the two best players, actually, Manzanera and Collasos. I think they're planning to bring in the young players to try and stay up. And it's not going to work, I don't think, because Universidad San Martin has a good academy as well, but they don't even try that. They're not crazy enough. They know it's too risky. So I think Catolao is going to be one of them. And I haven't really thought about the other one. The other one, I'll go to you, Peter, first. I think Catolao is probably the favorites to go down this year.
Yeah, putting me on the spot, putting all of us on the spot, Christopher. Jeez. Yeah, but you know what?
I got my answer. I'll say either Ayacucho FC or Unión Comercio. One of those two.
Yeah, I was going to say Unión Comercio as my second team. I agree with you on Cantolao. I think that, I mean, towards the end of the year, they did not look great. They lost a lot of key players. Unión, definitely a good shout. It's just so tough. I mean, so many different teams. I mean, things could go wrong for many different sides, really, at the bottom half of the table. I mean, it's so hard to guess. Christopher, what do you think?
I mean, I would agree with you with Cantolao. And then the other one for me is probably between Unión Comercio and Binacional, just because I haven't really heard about Binacional making a lot of signings, making a lot of an effort to really make a solid squad. And we know that the Copa Peru champion every year, it's either you go to Copa Sudamericana or you end up dead last.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm feeling with Melgar in the same city and all of that, I don't know. I honestly think that they're going to struggle.
Yeah, they're a good shout too. I think Binacional are going to do well personally, but they're not that shout. I think that they're definitely not out of relegation danger like some people think they are. I think they're still going to have they might underestimate the league, and I don't know. They also lost Jack Duran as well, so I don't know what made him think that going back to Copa Peru was a good idea, but he did. So
he likes it. He must like it.
He must like it. Yeah, he went back to his former club, Racing Machuco, which is where he came from before he went back to Binacional. But anyways, I guess we can go back to speaking of Racing was done this Segunda, but we can go to the Segunda División. They've introduced a new format. I want to say it's like a mix of the Liga MX and the A League. I'll get to that in a second, but it's like the top 8 teams go to the playoff, the Liguilla. So it kind of like the Liga MX in the Colombian League, the top 18 go to Liga, and first place goes directly to the semifinals, like the A League. So, yeah, what do you guys think on this? I'll give my thoughts after you guys. Christopher, let you go first. What do you think of this new idea?
Well, La Segunda División is actually something that I've been following closely as a Sport Ancash fan. And like what comes to mind is the 2016 season where we had like I want to say what 6 teams. That it was to me it was almost luck. I mean the very last match day, it's like any of those 6 teams could have been the team going to first division, right? And so to me, like having this whole like playoff where you include the 6 or 7 teams that are like on the upper portion of the table, I think it's good. I think it's good to see those good teams fight each other and really earn that spot. Personally, I think that we should have two slots to the first division, and we should just get rid of Copa Perus anyways. But if we can't have that, I think it makes for an interesting tournament.
Yeah, I remember that match day where it was like Cinciano, Manucci, Sport Ancash, Catolao. There's a bunch of teams fighting it. And I agree they should have 2 spots, but I don't agree that Copa Perú should get rid of one. I think that's like a unique thing that we have. And I quite like it. It helps establish clubs. But I think that 3 clubs should go down instead of 2 and give 1 spot to the Segunda División.
Yeah.
But one thing before I get to Peter, one thing that I really like about this is like they did this because there was a huge corruption issues with Cerro Vallejo last year. And they're doing it to fight corruption, and I think it's a really good idea. I mean, finishing first is not going to be it's not going to have as much value anymore. But I think it's a good idea in this division because it's a lot of corruption and it's all a mess. So I quite like it. What do you think about this, Peter?
Yeah, agreed. I think a playoff format or a Liguilla format is always exciting. It's fun for the fans. It gives all the other teams a chance. I mean, Christopher mentioned all great points. I'm probably going to repeat most of them, but overall, it's also going to give teams who go straight down or teams who are maybe, on the precipice of challenging for that top spot or maybe, in the top 2 or 3 best teams in the division, giving them a legitimate shot of getting there. And it ramps up the pressure on these teams when they actually get to that stage, when the playoff begins. And I think it's going to be, it should be very entertaining on the surface. Of course, we've talked on the top of the show about keeping the format the same within the Peruvian football pyramid. This is a change I can at least get behind. Hopefully they keep it for at least a little while because, knowing Peru, it's going to change all over again in a few years anyways, or probably next year. But I am a big fan of it. I always love a playoff system.
Yeah, I do as well. It's definitely fun. Like I said, finishing first is not going to have as much value, but it's I think it's the best way to fight corruption. I think it's the best way around it, and it makes it more exciting as well, like you said, Peter. So yeah, I think next year Segunda División is going to be more exciting. I thought it was going to be Cerro Vallejo just coasting the way to the Primera, but I think that this year is going to be more interesting now that we have this. Although I still think the Cerro Vallejo is still miles above everyone else in the league, so we'll see what happens.
So one more aspect that I would like to bring up is also the fact that these guys, the players that play in these teams, it's what 30 matches, which is if there's 52 weeks in a year, right? They're having really long vacations, right? And I'm pretty sure that it being Peru, these guys are probably not getting paid. So the fact that they're adding a few more weeks to the calendar, to the season, for the players, me thinking about the players and their economic situations and whatnot, it's good for them to see them get that economic benefit so that we can continue to have a strong, pool of professional players in Peru.
Of course. Peter, what do you think about
that? Completely agreed. And again, I did like your point, Brian, about the corruption. It does fight it. As we know, Peru is probably one of the most, if not the most corrupt leagues in the Americas, or at least the league system is. I
know Argentina's up there as well.
Yeah, quite honestly, I think you could probably rattle off a lot of, it's a very strong competition. Let's just put it that way.
It's hard because I want to say it's Peru, but then I think about Argentina, how they keep postponing the start of every league, and it's quite funny to see. Actually, it's quite amusing. I'm like, okay, well, maybe we're not that bad.
No, it's true. It's true. Very true.
Yeah, so okay, so there's really not much else to say about the Segunda División. I think that's an interesting way to fight it. I really hope one of the Trujillo teams goes up next year. It could be Sarrejo, Manucci, or even Cinciano. I want someone traditional to go back up, but we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be Sarrejo personally because they've kept a lot of their players and they look like they're going to fight the league again this year. So I think it's going to be them. So before we move on, who do you think is going to be? Peter, I'll go to you first.
Sorry, who's going to
fight for the Segunda División? Who's going to win it?
Okay. God, we're putting each other on the spot here. I like this. I mean, there are a couple teams that catch my eye. Certainly one of them would be Cinciano. I don't mind them. Manucci, possibly as well. I mean, I don't see either of the relegated teams, Alianza Atletico or Juan Aurich, challenging, especially Juan Aurich. They're dealing with a lot of financial issues. What else is new? Those would probably be my two.
What about you, Christopher?
I'm going to have to go with either Cesar Vallejo. I mean, they have Chemo del Solar as their new coach, right?
Right. I completely forgot about that.
And we know that the family that owns that club has a lot of money to throw out.
Yeah.
I mean, throw out there, right?
Acuna. I think he's doing it at the university too, isn't he?
Yeah, right. And also, other than that, I would love to see Cienciano needs to go back, and also Checho Ibarra is just like hilarious. So
the flukiest goal scorer in the history of Peru, and he's the top goal scorer somehow. So
yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we can move on. Next schedule we had, I believe, was answering questions. That is correct. So I'm gonna look at the questions we have. We got 3 questions from a couple people, and we're gonna answer them. So let's do that. So the first question we got was from Michael Rodriguez, which is Peruano for life, but life spelled with a Y. And he asked, thoughts on Polo, I said that horribly, thoughts on Polo's moves to the Timbers. Does that help his chances to get in the World Cup? Or will players with Sandoval, Gomez, Avila making moves to better leagues block his chances of getting a call-up? Now, I took a long, hard think of this question. It's a very, very good question because I wanted to say that Polo was a favorite. But when you think about it, was he a favorite because he was a favorite, or was he a favorite because he was playing in a better league? And he was showing his talent at Universitario, and then he moved to Monarcas, where he was playing in a better league than most of these players. But now there's more competition with players like Sandoval, Gomez, and Avila. Gomez and Sandoval have both gone call-ups from Gareca in recent times. Avila's kind of been freezed out, but the other two have gone call-ups, and they're playing in different leagues. So that's a good question. So I'll let you guys go to it first. Christopher, what do you think on this question?
Well, like I was saying before we went live, I think that if he can find a place in the Timbers, if it's guaranteed that he's going to be able to show himself this season in MLS, I think Gareca is going to continue to consider him for the main squad. That's kind of my 2 cents.
And Peter, what about you?
Yeah, completely agreed. Not that Sandoval or Gomez or anybody else who moved to Mexico are not at all going to get in, but Gareca, as everybody knows who follow this team for the past few years, he has a set group of players that he likes to call up, anywhere from 23 or 28. He usually calls up the same players over and over again, and then he has his ideal 11. So that never changes unless there's suspensions or injuries. Unless Andy Polo is absolutely terrible in Portland, which I really don't foresee, he's going to be a starter there, I would imagine, based on just who else they have in that squad. He should start on the right wing. I honestly don't foresee him losing his spot. Will he start? Definitely not, because you got Jefferson Farfan competing for that right wing role, Andre Carrillo, who's probably going to end up starting no matter what his form is in. Maybe that changes, who knows. But I don't think he'll lose his place in the squad at all.
Yeah, it's a hard choice because that right wing has so many options. You have Farfan, Carrillo, Hurtado as well. Now you got Sandoval, Gomez. Gomez is more of a left winger, but I think he can play the right sometimes. Yeah. So it's hard to say because he does have that set group of players, but he liked to call players that were playing abroad. So I'll be curious to see in March how we handle this. Like if he's going to call up a few players to experiment, or if he's just going to call up the same players as usual. So it's a question that's really gonna be answered. I don't think anyone can predict this right now. If you predicted correctly, then that's great. But if I'm thinking it's more of a guessing game at this point. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Brian, just quickly, I will say this. In terms of the squad we probably can expect to see in those friendlies against Croatia and Iceland in the U.S., it's definitely going to be a mixture. I think he's probably going to want to call up, pretty much the fairly same squad, but he will probably call in a few players who's possibly Christian Benavente. I would fully expect him to be there. His form in Belgium's been exceptional the past few months. If he's not there, I'd be absolutely shocked. I'm sure he's going to call back in Sandoval and Gomez and everybody else who moved to Mexico, Cartagena, Santa Maria as well, although those guys were already regulars in the squad anyways. I would imagine those guys probably end up not only just getting in the squad, but maybe even getting looks in one of those games, if not both of those games.
That's still not Alexander Cayens, of course. So
exactly. Always
I think now I haven't really given my opinion on how I think Polo will do. Polo's always been a bit underwhelming for me, but not because I don't think he has talent. I just think he doesn't confide in himself. Even though Universitario is very inconsistent, and that's making consistent back passes all the time, sort of driving forward. That's a loss on the spot of Monarcas because he didn't just underwhelm so much because he has the talent, just doesn't show it. Mm-hmm. That's the problem.
100%.
So I think that's the issue with Polo, and I hope that Portland Timbers he changes that. So now to the second question we got. The question was, should we call Claudio Pizarro at least to the upcoming friendly Lima to say thanks and goodbye? As the fans start over Carrillo and Russia. So let's answer one question at a time. Let's start with the Claudio Pizarro question. I'm going to say no because, Christopher, before we talked, we were talking before, and Christopher said that we should just call him up, get him over with, so we don't have to call him to the World Cup. We don't have to worry about any of that. It's just a fair point and all, but it will be the most booed goodbye in history. I don't think people will go to really say goodbye. So it's quite funny. So Christopher, I'll let you go first again.
So to me, his career, he should have retired. In 2015, when he won the Bundesliga, he was a super sub, right? And then that same year, Peru gets third place in the Copa America, and he was actually part of that squad. I think that it would have been a proper goodbye to a legend of a generation that, wasn't the best generation of Peruvian soccer. I think that's kind of where he should have stepped down. But he's kind of continued to linger, and he's always biting at our heel. I feel like he always comes back every few months. He always comes back. So we can finally say look, thank you very much for all you did. You're top 10 scorer in the Peruvian national team. You're an awesome guy, and so. But obviously, I think that it's probably not going to happen. We're not going to call him up. But it would be nice to see him play in Lima at Estadio Nacional and kind of say goodbye to the fans. Although it would be really weird. Yeah. What do you think, Peter?
Completely agreed. I don't think he will get called up. This is going to continue to be a story up until the plane leaves for Russia. He's definitely, I would assume, not going to be on that plane either. No. I would hope not. Whether or not they should call him up, I actually do agree with you in that. Let's just kind of, put the dog to sleep, to use a very harsh term. Let's finally end this, because it's been, yes, I understand Pizarro has been a polarizing figure with the national team, at least, for more than a decade. Did he underwhelm with the national team? Yes. Was some of that his own doing? Absolutely. Off the pitch stuff, on the pitch. Was he deployed properly? No. We could get into this. We could do a whole show on this. But I still think that his career in general, like you said, Christopher, should be celebrated. Highest scoring foreigner in Bundesliga history. Really did pave the way for a lot of Peruvians abroad and changed the perception of Peruvian soccer in a lot of ways, especially in Germany. And I think that in itself should be celebrated, not so much his national team career, but just his career as a whole, because he really is, if not the most decorated Peruvian of all time, one of the most decorated Peruvians of all time. But I just don't think it'll happen because, as Brian said, he might get booed a little bit, if not a lot.
Yeah, I think that it's hard to say goodbye to Pizarro because he hasn't really done much in Peru to warrant it. He's done it in Germany. In Germany, you can do that. And although we're happy with him, the Bremen fans for sure. maybe even Bayern fans. I'm not too sure. He's done well for Bayern for the few times he has played for Bayern. He's played well. He's even been a starting forward at one point. So yeah. Well, as for the second question, does Farfan start for Carrillo in Russia? I want to say yes, but like I also like I want to say yes, and I also want to say no because I want him like as a forward, but then that means benching Guerrero, and that's no thank you. So it's hard because Farfan on the wing, he can do damage, but he's not the same player as before, and I don't think he fits into what Gareca wants on those wings. Gareca wants pace and dribbling on those wings, and Farfan's more of a one-touch player nowadays. Peter, what do you think?
Yeah, if he were to start on the wing, Andre Carrillo, no matter what his form is, I think he's still going to end up starting there no matter what. Although I will say his form over the past few weeks for Watford has been really, really promising. He's actually completing crosses properly, and he did score, became the first Peruvian to score in the Premier League, I think, since Solano actually left. I could be wrong on that.
No, since Pizarro, I think. Or you might be right, actually, because Solano left later, but I think later on in his career, he went to the championship, and I think even League Two at one point.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So it has been a while since Peruvian last scored in England's top flight. That is the point.
Yeah,
and he's been really, really good recently, even when he hasn't scored or assisted. He's been tracking back. He's been working hard, which we don't always associate with him. It looks like Watford's going to pick up his option from Benfica, which is about 15 million euros, not cheap at all, especially for a player who hasn't been playing all that much the previous couple of years. Excuse me. Yes, Farfan's form is great. It is as a forward, though. Has been deployed as a winger, though, in more recent games for Lokomotiv. But, again, who does he displace? That's the problem. Does his form warrant starting if he keeps this up going into the summer? Absolutely. But it's just the question of, will he be able to displace anybody? And from my point of view, the answer seems to be no at this point.
Yeah, the last player I will replace is Guerrero. He's the last player I will replace. He's the one who got us here. He's the leader of them all. So there's no chance that will happen. So where's the front fit in? Maybe even as a 10, but that means you got to bench Cueva, who's also been really influential to this team. So it's hard, and it's good news really because it shows how the team works as a unit. Mm-hmm. How there's not really many weak points in the team because everyone plays just towards each other. So that's one thing I'm loving about it, but it can also be a headache for some managers and for some players as well. Christopher, what are your two cents on this?
No, so I understand that the situation in the last New Zealand game in Lima was different, right? We didn't have Guerrero, and we really needed to score those goals. But, Gareca did surprise us all. We thought that this was the kind of guy that kind of stuck to the same plan, and all of a sudden he said, you know what, we're going to start with Farfan and Rui Diaz. Okay, so to me, I think that he can work something out, especially if Farfan continues to score all those goals. If he continues to just killing it in Russia, right? It's not a bad idea to just have Polo and Farfan up front. So therefore, that means that everything else might just get kind of restructured, and I can kind of see Gareca maybe forming a team behind those two guys and just as those two guys as the main pillars per se.
The problem is, though, the main problem with that, though, assuming Guerrero and Farfan were to start up top, is that they like to occupy the same space. So will it actually work? Guerrero likes to operate really by himself up front, and would that kind of compromise each other? That's really the only question behind that. He could definitely change it up and, switch up the system to fit in Farfan because, if he continues this red-hot form, my God, it would be kind of insane to leave him out, in all honesty. But the question is, does it work with the other players being in there? And I'm not so sure.
I don't know if we should play with two strikers because then, what's going to be the formation? Do we play a narrow system? That means sacrificing the two wingers, or do we just sacrifice the 10? Because I'm not playing the same system as playing in New Zealand. That was always a risk because New Zealand didn't really impress much in the midfield, and it was a risk that could have been taken. Mm-hmm. Against, I don't know about Denmark, but against France, you can never do that against a top team like France. And
even Denmark.
Australia has a good team, but Australia doesn't have the best team. They have a decent side, but there's one strong point they have, is that they have an abundance of midfielders. So if you're going to sacrifice the midfield for Australia, you're going to get slaughtered in the midfield. That's what happens against Honduras. Because Honduras, they just slaughtered them. And Chile as well. They're the same as Chile. So you can't let them dominate, or else they'll beat you. So or they'll at least if they're not so wasteful, then they'll do really well against you. And against, since we're not like a Germany or an Argentina, I think it's very possible to lose to them if that's the approach that's taken. So, yeah, I'm going to move on to the last question, which was, before we go to the Peruvians abroad, how happy are you guys that your team is in the playoffs for the Cup? If you win all the way, will there be a party worldwide? Well, I'll send out the second question. Well, by worldwide, you mean nationwide, then yes. But we won't win. Let's be fair. And a worldwide party, I don't think so. Maybe in some countries that people weren't happy that Peru won. Maybe in some countries that they haven't qualified. Maybe even in South America, because South Americans are always supporting each other. But I don't think that it will be worldwide. So, yeah. And as for the questions, how happy is that we're in the playoffs of the Cup, which obviously means the World Cup finals? I'm very happy. I'm pretty sure you guys are as well. What would you say?
So, to me, I think Peru. For me to be content with Peru's participation in the World Cup, I want to see them leave the group stage. If they can leave the group stage, if they can make it to the round of 16 and even to the quarterfinals, I will be more than satisfied and more than happy with Peru. I will be a little disappointed if we can't beat Denmark, especially, and kind of gain a few points in that group stage.
Yeah, agreed with that. I will say this, though. It's funny how just a few months ago, every Peruvian was thinking, well, it would be great if we got there, but realistically, it's probably not going to happen. We were saying this after the Bolivia game. We were even saying this to a slight degree after the Ecuador game. And in that Colombia match, up until Guerrero's free kick, I was conceding to my father, you know what, they're not going to do it. I'm sorry. They got so close. It's just not going to happen. This is classic Peru, almost, but not quite.
Yeah.
And they did it, and to their credit, they got in. So they're already exceeding expectations at an incredible rate. But that being said, the group is balanced enough for Peru to get to the round of 16. I mean, we will probably talk more about that as it draws near, but
it's probably about drawing Denmark, I think. If we at least draw Denmark, then I think we'll get through. If we at least draw them, I think we'll beat Australia.
Denmark might not even do it, because think about this. You draw Denmark, then let's say Peru loses to France and Denmark beats Australia. So it's now 4 points to 1 in favor of Denmark. Going to that last game, France and Denmark can just have a gentleman's agreement and play to a draw, which would knock out Peru, because they'd be on 5. Peru would have maximum 4. So I feel like Peru would have to win that game to really ensure it.
That's a good point.
I mean, it might happen. You never know. But I feel like if Peru does not win, people should, whether it's a draw or a loss, especially obviously a loss for sure, but if it's a draw, they should be a little bit nervous and wary about that.
Yeah, no, I did not think about that actually. So that's a good point. So we might see another Germany, Austria. Let's hopefully not.
Yeah,
I probably won't be watching that game anyway, because I'll be watching Peru, because it's gonna be at the same time. So I won't have to suffer. I'll just have to suffer about us getting knocked out. So Denmark on the good side. They have players like Christensen, Pione, Sisto, Eriksson. I think they're lacking in forwards though. Like, I don't really rate Bentner that much. I don't think he's as bad as some people say he is, but he's not a great player either.
Well, Nikolai Jorgensen.
Yeah, and as for there's another player I liked on Denmark, and it was I can't even remember anymore. But the big dogs are Pione, Sisto, Christensen, and Eriksson, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyways, let's move on to the Peruvians abroad now. Now that we are done. First of all, hello to Peruvian Pepper, who says, in my opinion, Benavente should get called before all of them. Hello to you. And I think we all think that Benavente should get called as well, at least for March. And it'll be nice to see him do this form. Those are some Peruvians abroad. Like, here's the list. Let's talk about the big dog firstly. Rui Diaz, who started off all right in Mexico. I thought he was excellent in his last game. He should have gotten a penalty call before him as well, but they didn't call it. I don't remember who had made the tackle, but he was in the box, and I thought he was going for the legs. So he could have gotten a penalty. He could have won a penalty and scored a second, but he didn't. It's Puebla. Do you see that match, Peter? What do you think of it if you saw it?
I watched it. He was his same old usual self. He was a menace in the penalty area, making great runs. Diego Valdez and him are connecting very, very well. Brian, you had a great tweet. Chile should have definitely brought on him a lot more than an aging Valdivia. That was obvious to everybody except for Pizzi, and that is why they're not going to the World Cup. It's because of decisions like that. But I digress. Ruiz, he's going to compete for the Golden Boot again. It's what he does. He's a great goal scorer, and he's a tireless worker off the ball as well. And you saw that in this game. That's what you're going to get with him. He's a player who I think is in that category now, along with the likes of Edison Flores and pretty much every other major player for Peru, where you don't have to worry about them suffering a really bad run of form just because you know what you're going to get with them.
Yeah, for sure. Christopher, what are your 2 cents on this, firstly?
Well, I think he's going to be staying. I mean, obviously, he's found a place at Monarcas. The club loves him, and I think he's going to be staying. I would love to see him go somewhere else. I mean, I think he's already shown that he can own Liga MX. So, to me, the question would be, after a World Cup, where would you see him going?
Really, yes. I think Liga MX is the peak for him because he's 27, and I'm not sure he's going to be great in Europe. I mean, I think he'll score goals, but he's not as skilled in Mexico. He's played more as a poacher in Mexico than he is for Peru or even Universitario, where he has more freedom. So I think that's going to be his letdown because I don't know if he goes to Europe, where would he play? He's 27 now, so it's hard to say really. And it's hard to say if he has the level of it too. I think he's one of the best strikers in the league, but I'm not sure. I still don't think he'll do excellent in Europe if he goes. So it's a hard say really. What do you think, Peter?
Yeah, it depends on the league, of course. I don't think he'd go to like a top 5. Well, he could maybe go to a top 5 league, but for like a lower mid-table side, especially if he happens to get enough minutes to impress at a World Cup, because hype does incredible things. Look what happened to James, five games for Colombia, and he gets a move to Real Madrid when they probably weren't even monitoring him before the tournament.
Navas too.
Yeah, and Keylor Navas, another perfect example. Although he did play in La Liga, so at least they maybe would have had a look at him before. But
yeah,
in terms of Liga MX clubs you could go to, I mean, look, he's constantly linked to America. They've got their forwards now. Jeremy Menes has gone in. Luke de Jong has been linked there, although he's now staying at PSV. It's been announced. I could see him going to even to a club like Pumas or someone like that. Basically one of the regular big teams. But as Brian said, and I quote, just not Cruz Azul, please.
Yeah, for sure. I think I would love really to play for a club like Club America. I mean, Cuba expectation, yeah, but at least you can at least it's a big club, so like you can make your name. You can be like another Salvador Cabañas without the getting shot part. So it's it'll be fun. It'll be good to see him. Even a club like Boca Juniors, even a Brazilian club like Flamengo, Corinthians, that'll be fine for me. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Europe is the best choice. I'd rather be a goal scorer in the Americas. I can be completely fine with that. So yeah, Ruiz Diaz, and I'm happy to see him continue to succeed. I think he's one of at least the 4 best forwards in Mexico. I don't know where him among the others. I think they're the best are Mario Boselli, Ruiz Diaz, Gignac, and one of them too. Peter, would you agree with that?
I think so, yeah. Easily top, I would even argue top 3 just in terms of based on ability and his overall body of work.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, no one, I think, expected this level of success for him. I mean, he needed to leave, but I mean, people probably expected him to, or at least those who watched him closely beforehand were expecting, yeah, I mean, he could do well for a club like Monarcas. He probably won't light the world on fire, but he'll do well enough. And now look at, he was holding just, and as I mentioned in my year-end review, just lots of golden balls. His balls are golden, guys. I mean, what else can we say? So,
yeah, he's the first Peruvian to win the Liga Next Best Player since Jerónimo Barbadillo, whatever you call it, who's a great player. And that's something special, which I guess that's the question. How did Guerrero not win the Best South American Player of the Year? He was leading the votes longest time, and somehow he didn't win it. But that's sort of topic for another time. So the next Peruvian abroad we can talk about, I guess I don't have to look at my list. I'll just go to Renato Tapia, who actually scored in a friendly, and he was nominated for one of the best defenders in the Dutch league, which is great. I'm not sure if Dutch people think he's as good as Davinson Sanchez. Probably not, but I mean, despite some of his weaknesses being exposed as a center back, I think he's done very well.
Oh yeah, 100% he has. I mean, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst saw his qualities and thought, he can make a decent makeshift center back. And to Tapia's credit, he's settled into the role very well. Does he get sucked out of position at times? Yes, but he's a midfielder playing center back. That's going to happen. And when you face teams like, and I mean, he saw both of them, but Napoli and Manchester City, who are making these never-ending runs in and around the penalty area, you're going to eventually get sucked out. It just happens. Every defender suffers through it. But yeah, he's done incredibly well. And you know what? I think it's actually helped his overall game with the national team. I remember watching the Argentina match. He was man-marking Lionel Messi pretty well. Yeah. Considering who he was going up against, he has to be commended for that. And we now see that he's linked to Olympique Marseille, which is massive. I feel like he does have to leave because as soon as the Feyenoord squad is fully fit, he's not going to be playing anymore. He's not going to be starting for sure. So he does have to probably look for a move abroad. And that's actually a player to watch at the next World Cup for Peru. If you're looking at someone sort of under the radar, probably top of the list.
And Christopher, what do you think? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think they don't call him El Capitán del Futuro, the captain of the future, for nothing. And it would be nice to see him to go to one of the top five, like we were saying before with Ruiz. He would probably not go to one of the biggest clubs in Europe, but I think, for example, France or mid-table Spain would be an interesting market for him, or even the Premier League, like something like Watford or Leicester would be pretty interesting for Renato Tapia to develop.
And Tapia knows English, so I think the Premier League would actually be convenient for him because either Spain or the Premier League, or Spain or England, he knows the language, so why not? 100%. So next player we can talk about. I haven't really decided. I guess we can talk about Luis Advíncula, who kind of had a rough start in Mexico. I thought he was all right in his first game, like nothing special, nothing bad. Second game, he was a bit iffy though. So Peter, I know you've had a bit of a critical opinion of him in the first two games. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I want to say it's just down to a slow start because, you know, the Clausuras are starting up finally. You know, he's had a few weeks off because obviously Lobos didn't play in the Liguilla. He also was reportedly looking for a move out, and a few clubs are actually interested in him. Apparently, I could be wrong, Boca Juniors are actually looking to loan him.
That'd be nice.
They were looking for pretty much anybody to come into the squad, as is evident by their squad rebuild.
Well, he's well respected in Argentina, so that could work. I don't see him being easily benched by Boca Juniors like was by Tigres. So
no,
he
exactly.
The Newells and he did really well. So
well, keep in mind though, I mean, he was injured. That is the reason why he left Tigres in the first place on loan. Otherwise, he'd still be there. Tuca Ferretti really did like him a lot. It's just, you know, he was injured. Luis Rodriguez came in and took his spot. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's what happens. I don't foresee this being an issue though. This form, I do think that in the next couple of weeks he'll eventually pick it up again. Lobos have not had a great start to the season, especially defensively. So that probably does have something to do with it as well.
Yeah, and Christopher, what do you think about this? What is all your opinion on this move, these rumors, and Luis Advíncula as a whole?
I mean, I agree 100% with what you guys have been saying. I think him going back to Argentina, he really like with Newell's. I mean, those fans like loved him, and he was only there one season, right? I think him going back to Tigres would also be awesome. I think like when I heard that he was going down to Lobos, for someone like him, it felt like to me like this club is too small for him. This is a step in the wrong direction. He needs to keep going up, even though he is getting up there in age per se. So yeah, like hopefully this is just a rough patch. You know, hopefully he'll just pick up his form pretty soon, and maybe we'll see him going somewhere else.
Now, I guess we can talk about one more player abroad. Peter, I'll let you pick on this one because there's a lot of players, and it's a hard pick because Aquino, we could pick Aquino, we could pick Avila, we could pick Gomez, but they've all only had 2 games in this Clausura. So I think the best pick would be Aquino, but if you had someone in mind, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably best to pick a player who's in season right now. Otherwise, we'd have a whole wealth of options, I'm sure.
We can go for Carrillo. Do you think?
Yeah. Well, why don't we go Andre Carrillo? Because I did mention his form briefly there.
Exactly. I forgot about him for a split second, so I'm just going to talk about him.
Yeah. Plus, I'm sure we're going to have many opportunities to talk about your boy Pedro Aquino, Brian, in future episodes. So it's
later episodes for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Carrillo. Briefly, I'll just mention it because I did talk about it beforehand. He was struggling a lot at Watford, which I think is to be expected. As I mentioned earlier, did not get a lot of game time at Benfica after leaving Sporting because he stupidly said, I'm going to leave you for your biggest rivals a year before the season ended. It was probably one of the most ballsiest moves I've seen from a player, also one of the stupidest. And I guess that was karma because he barely played because Benfica was so deep. Came to Watford, played a lot right from the start, and you could tell that there were flashes there, but he never truly settled in until probably, I'd say, over the holidays. And there were rumors that he was looking to win back his Benfica place. He didn't truly settle in at Watford. He didn't want to be there. And then slowly but surely, he snapped into form. And of course, it does help that his former manager, Marco Silva's there. That was the manager who was in charge the last time Carrillo actually had a fantastic full season, which was at Sporting in 2014-15, I believe it was. And now the past 3 weeks, I mean, his crossing's improved. He's taking on defenders and beating them on the dribble constantly. He's scored. He's assisted. And he's a constant menace. I also think one of his other issues was he never looked like he wanted to get truly involved in the match and want to be that influential. Now he is. Now he's more central to the team's attack. And that can only help him heading into this last part of the season here in the Premier League.
Yeah, he's definitely found a purple patch. He even got an assist in one recent match. So he's on some good form. And he's, like you said, he's getting into crosses now. He's causing more problems than usual. So that's good to see. He's never really been a number player. Like, he's not been a statistic player. So you got to just watch him and you'll see how good he is. You're not going to get it from stats because he's a bit unlucky in some sense. But he's still a good player. I just think he's a bit lazy sometimes. Christopher, what do you think?
Well, to me, my biggest beef per se with Carrillo has always been his lack of scoring goals. I think he is awesome at what he does on the right field side of the field, and just especially in the national team, he was doing pretty good these last few matches. But the fact that we're seeing him score, I think that speaks volumes. I think that, like you guys were saying, I agree that he's finally starting to consolidate and he's becoming a regular for the team. So yeah, I think. I don't see him moving after the World Cup. I think he's going to stay at Watford because he's already doing pretty well. I think he's doing pretty well in the Premier League. I don't see him going up to an even bigger club. So yeah.
Well, it does look like they're going to pick up his option, which is, like I mentioned earlier, is very positive, which means he knows where he's going to be next season. That was always a worry for him. And the Premier League, let's be honest, guys, that's well suited to his strengths. And I mean, if there's one thing English fans love, it's fast players who can dazzle you with dribbling. And that's exactly what he can provide. So I think he has a home there in London.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe he gets in the club system because he likes players like that, but I doubt it. I think that's being a bit wishful.
Yeah, so, Watford's probably his ceiling, as Christopher mentioned, I think. And which is totally
I think so as well. Which is good. He's still playing against some top teams, so it's a good place to play, and even his club isn't the biggest. So yeah. So I guess we can end it there. The first, we have about 4 minutes, but not much to say. I don't think we should really dive into another topic now, just because we have low time. So my Twitter is B_Bertie98, and we'll go to Christopher first because he hasn't gone on the Brian Peters show. What's your Twitter?
So I'm Christopher Viscardo, and my Twitter handle is VIZ_FC.
All right, and how about yours, Peter?
As always, to those of you who usually listen to me, I am at GalindoPW.
All right, so make sure you join us next week for another Peruvian Waltz podcast. Hope you enjoy this first episode, and we'll see you guys soon.